Welcome to Shack Labs.
where coaching, club fitting, technology, and data come together.
Because we believe everybody's individual. Everybody has different movements, built differently. You know, some people are more mobile than others, and we all swing the club differently. We all have different tendencies. So, using the data and video to show how they need to improve or where they need to improve makes a lot more sense, rather than just handing them out generic stuff you can find on the internet, which is based at a wider spread audience versus that individual person, because everybody swings the club differently and they are able to do certain things differently. So we want to look at that individual, not as a whole mass group.
Well, I would say all the TrackMan numbers matter, but in a lesson, what we look at is we're looking at the level of golfer that we're dealing with. And in our teaching, depending on what we also want to work on, we can pick and choose what's more important right now and how we're going to flow into the numbers later on. But two numbers I like to look at is usually face angle and club path. I mean, many people walk in here and they want to hit a certain shot shape, or they feel like they're doing something in their swing, but it's the complete opposite. So just knowing how your club path is moving, is your face angle matching up to what you want to do, it really shows them the shot shape on the monitor there. Okay, well, TrackMan is extremely accurate. So a lot of the times, like I mentioned, a golfer might be feeling something, but it's actually not happening. So once the coach helps them feel it properly and they can see the numbers start to change, they'll know exactly what to work on going forward.
Yeah, I also think it's that sort of feel versus real concept where it helps show them, on their video, if you get them to do a movement and show them what to do, doesn't necessarily feel correct. A lot of people always say it feels so like crazy in terms of what the feeling is versus what it's actually doing. Kind of helps us prove, what we're saying is actually what needs to be done, and that sort of impact on the numbers and the video to kind of refer back to and have that sort of immediate feedback after every swing helps us just get the message across, but it also improves the learning rate quite a lot. Yep. So Zen Swing Stage is this little platform you can see here. It's a platform which moves, so I mean we can recreate over 400 lies on this machine, from uphill, sidehill, downhill. It can move in all four corners, so we can really replicate certain lies which you might struggle with on the golf course. But it's also a very nice tool for if somebody is struggling to feel a certain movement or get into a certain position. Let's say they're stuck on their left side or on their right side and we want them to move, we can adjust the slope accordingly to force them in a certain direction. Same as if somebody's over the top, the slope here is a good example. If the ball's above their feet and they are coming in too steep, they're going to make contact with the ground too soon. It will just teach them how to swing with that slope, and it will teach them a feel of shallowing out the club and getting it more neutral in terms of path.
So in our first 10 minutes of a coaching session, normally we're gathering reports on the student. So gathering report, having them warm up, seeing what their patterns are like, seeing their rhythm, and then obviously the data is being measured. So we have all of it on the screen for them to see and for the coach to also see. And, the coaches already in our head will be planning on what we want to do in the lesson depending on what the goals were, and just letting the student know what we're seeing, how we're going to improve this. So a lot happens in that 10 minutes on just gathering all that data.
So proof would be, obviously we like Kat was saying, we measure all of those shots. We don't measure them, TrackMan measures them, but it obviously stores it under their account. So how we measure that is we obviously have video. As you can see, we can do a comparison of a before and after, or compare it to one of the tour players that are in the TrackMan library. The result there would be, we can show them their path. We can show them how their paths improved, their strikes improved, how their distance has gone up, how the dispersion has gone a lot tighter. If it's a specific shot shape that they're trying to hit, we'll show them that their bias has changed from a big slice to a slight draw, or vice versa, from a big hook to a slight fade, and show them that that's obviously why they're getting better, and it's going to be the long-term goal there is to get them to hit more consistent shots with the same sort of patterns. And we can actually compare that from before and after, not only in video to show them how much better their golf swing looks, but in their numbers in terms of not just how far the ball's going and how straight it's going, but how much more neutral their path and their face would be.
So with my coaching philosophy is not everybody swings it the same. So I don't want to put anyone into a box. Like we said in the beginning, there are a lot of information that goes into someone just hitting one golf ball. So we can't say you have to swing it this way. We want to know, is this the way that you want to swing? How are we going to improve it from there? Because when I'm standing next to Dave, we clearly have different specs. So I'm not going to have the same swing that he does.
So very much along the lines of what Kat's saying, I like to look at, you know, what that player wants to do in terms of how much they're going to practice, what they would like to see out of the lesson, their goals in terms of where they want to improve, where they want their handicap to be. I focus more on the shots that they struggle with initially, and then we kind of baseline that swing on, you know, I just want to see how they move the club, and then I'll go, how do you move your body? Why don't you rotate as much as you should is a normal one for me. Get the body moving correctly and make it pretty later is kind of my sort of motto there, is like focus on the fundamentals in terms of what actually moves the golf club, because 90% of amateurs and even some pros, you know, pull the club down on the downswing and they want to hit the golf ball with their arms and their hands. So just take that out completely, get them moving the body correctly, and then build a nice solid foundation from their work from the ground up. Yeah.
I think that summarizes very nicely on what the Swing Shack philosophy would be then. And like we said, we just want to learn everything we can about a student so that we can build the best goal in the end, you know, something that aligns with what you want to do, something that's on the same page as what the coach then wants to do.
Yeah.
And from there, we can just take your game to another level.
Yeah.
I mean, your pro and your beginner might want the same things in the end, but where they start and how we go through the process might look very different.
Yeah, and I think the other thing there, which we both do quite religiously, is we don't get too technical. It's like, yes, we've got a lot of numbers and they can be daunting and they can be intimidating, but it's like we want to use the numbers in such a way where it's like we can show you why we want you to know those numbers, but it's not just about the numbers. It's not like this position gets you that number. No, it's like we want to show you that we want to relate to a feel in terms of how does it feel to swing the club correctly? What does this feel do to video? Use video and the numbers and then compare those two before and after and explain why these things are so important without getting too technical and too sort of don't dive into the video and make it try look like Tiger Woods in essence. It's like this is kind of where I want the club to go. This is the feel that's going to get you there, and then that's what it does to your numbers is kind of, you know, instead of getting too technical. And I think that's important because people get sort of bogged down with too many thoughts. I don't know how many you have, but my mindset is always 3 fields per swing or per lesson.
Yeah, maximum.
Maximum. And it's like those fields can change a plethora of sort of different numbers and sort of, you know, things in the swing, but it's 3 things they can feel. You've got to obviously make sure that they can feel those things. And that's how you get results, is if somebody can feel it. I can tell you to do something, but if you can't actually feel it, you'll never be able to trust it out on the golf course. And that's kind of something we really focus on in here.
Yeah, and I think in terms of what we offer, it really tackles everybody's learning styles, because we got someone that might prefer the visuals over the numbers, or somebody that would rather just hear it out from the coach. But in terms of any learning style, we have everything here.
So initially when a player walks in, we'll get some details around their game, how long they've been playing for, you know, do they do other sports, do they work out, what's their handicap now, what's the best handicap they've played off, you know, what's their goal, and then we'll get them to come upstairs with us, measure. If they're doing an iron fitting, it will just be the irons, but let's say in the case of like a full bag fitting, we will measure the driver and the 7-iron, make sure that, you know, what their 7-iron really is playing is aware to them. So like they're aware of, okay, this thing says 7-iron, but is it actually a 7-iron? So we'll check the loft on the club. We'll check the lie angle of the club, so how it sits on the ground. We'll check the flex of the shaft, and we'll check the MOI of the total club, which is going to measure the force that's required to swing that golf club. A lot of clubs nowadays are quite strong in terms of loft, so guys struggle to get the ball up in the air, as an example. We'll tell them exactly what flex that shaft is playing at, as opposed to what it says it's playing, just like we'll do when we check the loft and the lie on the 7-iron, because sometimes they play at 5 irons or 6 irons, depending on where they've bought those clubs or the type of irons that they bought. We will also then discuss bend profile in the fitting. We'll give them a couple of kind of shafts to match their swing speed, to follow their tempo transition release. We'll give them the right bend profile, so tempo transition release, different types of firmness in those shafts relative to how quick or how slow they are in terms of tempo transition release. Then we'll give them a couple of different head options with the right loft. We'll also check the length is correct. We'll put them on the lie board to make sure that they're bottoming out, or where they're bottoming out, or what lie they're going to need. And with a driver, very similar in terms of shaft. Head-wise, we're just going to tell them exactly what weight does in the head, and then we're going to measure the driver head as well to make sure the loft is what it says it is and the face angle is as close to neutral as possible, because a lot of drivers with sort of mass production aren't exactly what they say they are as well. So there's a hell of a lot of things that go into that in terms of checking what they have, and then from there we have a baseline of, okay, hit some shots, look at their ball flight, decide what will work for them. Once we've seen them hit a couple of shots, we can break it down into from 500-600 options into 5-6 options in each. Jeepers. In a nutshell.
In a nutshell.
That's why it takes 90 minutes.
Okay, so I think first thing is a lot of beginners out there think that club fitting won't benefit them, but club fitting, like we said, benefits all golfers, and for men and women coming in, our specs are going to be very different. I mean, even with a professional lady golfer versus a professional male golfer, I mean, I'm swinging it at 97 miles per hour. Dave here is going past 115, so definitely not going to have the same shaft. But like Dave explained, there's so many things that goes into a club fitting that they're not just measuring one number, they're measuring everything in this club as a whole. And as a coach, what we see a lot of times is when somebody starts doing what you actually want them to do in a lesson, but they're just really struggling on
still
one
not getting
number.
that result.
They're not getting that result. Club fitting just takes you to that edge. It gets you there. The club is customized to you and you only. So that becomes very important. I mean, in golf, a few degrees makes a huge difference out on the golf course, and that difference could cost you a few shots. And I mean, something as silly as your lie angle being wrong could be why you're hitting such bad divots out there. So all these little things come into play, and I mean you might be losing by one shot at the end of the day in a tournament, and that one shot could have just been
1 degree.
1 degree. So I think, to any golfer out there, club fitting is super important, especially if you want to take your game to the next level. Just making it easier for yourself and swinging something that's comfortable.
And made for you.
And made for you, yeah.
Yeah. There's no point in having a perfect golf swing if you don't have the stuff that's tailored to you. Like we said, even in our values, it's everybody swings the club differently, so everybody should have a different golf club. It makes sense, right? So, regardless of just club head speed, there's various factors like I've mentioned before, but all of those things need to be tailored to that person, because we all have certain movements in the golf swing which will always be there as part of their sort of swing DNA. And even with coaching, they won't be able to get a lot of those patterns out. So if the shaft, just in terms of the release point, in terms of what the tip is doing, if somebody has a historically early release point, as an example, if their shaft's too firm in the tip section, they're always going to struggle with strike. And that, without any amount of coaching, is going to be their DNA. So it's going to be, something they're going to struggle with. But as long as they just get that part right, they're already, I would say, 33% of the way there, if that section is right. So we want to obviously get all three right, but it just makes such a big difference in terms of, yes, you can swing the club better, but it's not necessarily going to make you a better golfer if you don't have the right equipment.
I think you're going to definitely learn a lot about the coaches and everything that happens in Swing Shack. So, you know, how we teach, how that could benefit your game, equipment, just like standing on this Zen stage here. I mean, numbers change drastically from swinging it one way to the other. So going in detail about all those things. And yeah, I think this is just a lot of stuff that's going to come through.
Yeah. Yeah, look, I think there's going to be some interesting stuff you probably never even thought about. A lot of things you wouldn't have even known existed or why they exist. And understanding, I think that's the biggest misconception, is you need to be a pro to hop on one of these things and get better. It's not the truth. Anybody who walks in here and has a better understanding of their golf swing is going to become a better golfer, and especially if they know how to fix it. So it's going to be a lot about just becoming your best version of yourself in terms of playing better golf. You know, you're gonna learn about, you know, not just the general, this is how you set up and this is the feel of the swing. It's how can you use tools and how can you use tech to help you, and how do coaches who use this make that learning rate so much quicker, and open your eyes to how simple things can be without standing on the range aimlessly hitting golf balls without purposeful practice. And I think that's the highlighted thing here, is what can you do to make it simpler, but to make you the best golfer you can possibly be.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I think at the end of the day, we also bring in some golf philosophy.
Yeah, 100%.
So there might be weekly updates on that, but just the philosophy and how golf could be part of your life. I mean, it is going to be a way of life. In the end of the day, golf is going to fit somewhere in your schedule, and at the end of the day, you will find comparisons that will really help get you through the day. So yeah.
And you want to enjoy golf.
You want to enjoy it. We want you to enjoy it.
Yeah. We want to make golf fun again, as opposed to just frustrating yourself when you go out there.
Yeah.
At least you'll know why you're hitting bad shots, hopefully.
But I think there's big life lessons that can come out of it, from the round you just played, or how you walk in here to practice. A lot of things will go into that.
Yep. Cool.
Thanks, Oz.